Hey everyone, it's Ant-Man here. I'm going to be in this video doing a quick rundown of what I'm looking at for Monday morning. So without further ado, let's get right into this. As you see here, I have my basket of daily watchers. So I'm going to go through those one by one. And a play that I might be looking at for the morning as a possible gapper. So first on the list here is NVIDIA. And what I'm seeing here, I actually have my plan kind of typed up, ready for the morning. So I'm just gonna kind of go through it the way I have it typed up here, and then any changes that need to be made, I will make in the morning before posting it in the room. So Nvidia, that we have we can put this side by side. Yeah, right there. You can see we have a doji candle. If it pushes at the open, I will be watching for a test of yesterday's highs, which is this thick red line here, for a possible short entry. If there is strength in the market, it could make a push just above this area to the 147 whole number, maybe the 147.50, before topping out. If it dips at the open, let me just set this a little bit better so you guys can see it. I move that over. Yeah, there we go. If this dips at the open, I will be watching yesterday's lows, which is right here at 142.58, and also the 141.64 area. I have this in a very thick purple because this has been a significant area over the past couple days. So what I have done here is what I like to do is put little boxes around the areas that I'm watching, because as we all know, or if you guys don't know, I will touch on it briefly, that support and resistance zones are not necessarily specific levels of price, specific lines on the chart like these are. Most of the time they are zones, 20, 30, 40 cent zone, depending on where these price lines fall and the range of the stock itself. So that being said, what I like to do is draw these little rectangles in and around the area that I'm watching, which kind of gives me an alert. Hey, once price crosses into my rectangle, start paying more attention because something may happen. So that's kind of how I do things, and if you guys want to do that and it helps you, great. And if it doesn't, then it's something that I found helpful for me. So looking closer at this candle, we can also see here we have the 9 EMA, we have a 5 EMA here, and the futures, as you can see here on my future board, are basically flat. They're down 3 ticks, which is nothing. 4 ticks is a point. So I mean they're basically flat. So we'll see where the market gaps right now. This dark blue line is the very last bid and ask right here, which is right around that 147. I'm sorry, 144.73. So this plan here is written for more or less a flat or a very, very small gap open, but if there is a big gap in either direction, I will of course make the appropriate changes. So next on the list is Facebook. And Facebook is looking weak to me. It does have this downtrend here that might be starting to form. And I did square off an area here that I'm interested in. We have the 166.69 area, which is also conveniently lined up with the 200-day simple moving average right here. What I would love to see is lows of this range break, because there is nothing. There's nothing here for I don't know if it's quite 6 points, but going back, yeah, there might be little ticks in between here, but basically for something around 6 points, there's nothing from these lows down, about 5 points down. So that would be a wonderful play if this came underneath, retested and failed. So as far as what I have typed up, we have Facebook. I'll be watching for a test of the down-sloping trend line, this guy right here, on the daily. And if this, I'll be looking for a pop into, a test and a fail. Let's see. And if the range lows break, I will be looking for a short entry on a retest of the rejection of lows. The one thing that I've learned very thankfully not to do is short low of day breakdowns. It's a nice way to get your ass handed to you. So what I like to do is just, if this were to come break the lows here, you know, retrace into this level and then start topping out, start rolling over, start failing. That's where it would pique my interest to go short. And I just, like I said, I would be looking for a nice rundown. There's no real support in here, but I will always keep an eye on the whole numbers. And if it does get this far down, the 160 and this upper sloping trend line. Okay. Next down on my basket list, we have Baba. And Baba actually looks pretty good to me. If I pull it all the way out, you can kind of see how this 170 and this 164 are very important levels on the daily chart. I drew a box in between and shaded the area in between 164 and 170. And you can kind of see how this is acting like a line in the sand almost. You can see how this is anything above it, or like a VWAP. Anything above it, price was up, and anything below it, it was more of a downtrend. And the one thing I've noticed about this area is that the price always seems to get drawn to it. Pops, gets drawn back, pops, drawn back, pop, drawn back, and it keeps repeating over and over. And then from the underside, sells off, gets drawn back, sells off, gets drawn back. So what's next? The sell-off. That's what I'm probably looking at tomorrow. You know, there is a chance that this could pop over the 170, retest it, and hold. And in that case, is probably a few points on the table, because this here, the yellow line, is the 200 SMA, and there is nothing above it other than whole number and psychological resistance. So it does, in theory, on paper, look excellent for a long if this does get over. But depending on what the market does and the market conditions, and this being a Chinese stock, you know, it's probably not as likely. And the short is probably the better play tomorrow on this, and that's what I will be looking for. So, on Baba, we have a Gravestone Doji on the daily. As I just said, the 164 and 170 are key daily levels. Like I pointed out, they're almost acting like a VWAP, where if you're above it, you're above water, and the price will get drawn back to VWAP, and if you're underneath it, you're considered beneath, and the price will get drawn back up to the VWAP. It has a kind of magnetism to it, this area on the chart. Yesterday high, 170 and the 200 SMA are all sitting in the same area, right here. If it pushes at the open, I will be watching the 170 area, and we'll look for a short offer rejection. Break over 170, it may squeeze a bit, even though it's not very likely. You do have a bunch of these shorts that are in here. If this does pop over, as these shorts is plural, stops trigger, it's gonna induce buying, and this should have a squeeze if it does pop over this level. So like I said, it wouldn't really be a true quote-unquote long setup. It's more fake buying because it's shorts covering, but nevertheless, it should have a little pop above. For every level of stops that go off, it's going to probably squeeze out that much. If it dips at the open, I will be watching the 164 area to hold as support for a possible long. If 164 breaks, it'll probably come down and test the 9 EMA. And if I pull this in a little closer, here is 164, and here's also the 5 EMA on the daily. If this area does break, I would almost certainly be looking for a 9 EMA test right here. I definitely would see that as a strong possibility if this level were to break with authority. So next up, Starbucks. And what I have here on Starbucks, I have, if it pushes at the open, I will be watching yesterday's close and the 6860 area for a short entry, which is right in this little box that I just drew. Okay. And where am I? Excuse me. And if that area does break to the upside, I will be watching 69, which is this area right here. This area here, 69.49, I have marked as ATH. That's all-time highs. And it did kind of reject it here on Friday. Tried to get up to retest all-time highs and couldn't make it. It fell about 25 cents short and closed weak. It got sold back off at the end of the day and put in this inverted hammer, bearish looking candle. So this being more of a doji indecision candle, this to me looks like the beginning of a trend change. We have this nice uptrend. We have this daily indecision candle. And then we have this bearish looking inverted hammer. So the next day, in theory, should be a nice short day. Maybe a pop into one of these areas, and then we look for the fail. So that's what I will be primarily looking for on Starbucks tomorrow. If it dips at the open, the first area to watch will be yesterday's low, which is only 20 cents away, which is true. We're right. The last bid and ask is right around here at 68.20. Low of day is 68, so that is only 20 cents. But, as you can see, it's not uncommon for Starbucks to dip out 20 cents, 30 cents, and then put in its move for the day. So the next area down, if this 68 does break to the downside, I will be watching is this area I have here highlighted. This area between 67.50 and 67.70 for a support hold, which, as you can see, is also the 5 EMA on the daily. So if this does dip out and this area at the low of day from Friday does not hold, this will be my next area to look at for a long. But also probably more of a short bias on Starbucks given the look of the daily chart. And last but not least of my basket stocks is Qualcomm. And if I pull out the chart here, and you go back a little bit further, what you guys can see is this important $49 level. You can see how it acted as a level of both support and resistance. Going back to 2005, it's been a very key level. And we have this upsloping trend line from way back here in 2002. And it's been pretty well respected for the past 16 years. Almost touched here, here and here almost, and it touched here, just almost there, and most recently here. So it's been a pretty decent macro trend line in play on Qualcomm. And let me get this zoomed in. I'll show you what I am looking at for Monday here. All right, so we do have this bearish looking doji candle on the daily chart. Qualcomm Friday put in a bearish looking doji, as I just said. It closed near lows. With these other lines here, you really can't see it too clearly, but it's actually there's only about, from the close to lows, there's only about, I don't know, 10 cents. It's a very, very small amount on the bottom. It almost looks like a gravestone doji here, but it's a bearish looking doji on the daily. So with that said, what I am looking for, the $49 is a key level on the daily chart. It also intersects with a long-term macro trend line, as I just pointed out. If it dips at the open, I will be watching for yesterday's lows or the trend line slash 49, 49.10 area to hold this support, and I will take it long. If this holds, This is a very strong level. If this does hold, I'll take a double bottom, or I'll take a higher low without hesitation on this here. If it pushes at the open, I want to see what it does in and around the 50. If it's weak, I don't know if it's going to get back up to test high of day, which is 50.30, but it's a 30-cent range, so I put a little box around it, and it's a good area to watch. And I extended the box back. You can see how many days interacted with this area. So to me, it's kind of an important area to keep an eye on, and also, again, the 5 EMA pokes its head into the picture. 9 EMA probably out of the picture unless there's some kind of wacky news on this thing. So most likely push at the open, $50 first area, second area, high of day. And if this dips at the open, first area would be lows at 49.35, we'll call it, and then this 49.10-ish, $49 trend line area would be the area that I'm watching for a support hold. If this area here should break to the downside, I would probably take this short because there isn't much beneath this, I think, till 47. I haven't checked. Yeah, you have a little tick here at 47. It's not a strong area, but nevertheless, it is a down tick. So 47 there, and this is 46. We have this little uptick at 47.45. So the mid 47s is the next area of some kind of support. So if this area does break to the downside, come back up, test it, and fail, there's at least a point on the board, in my opinion. Not saying that it will go that far, but looking at the chart, there is room to the downside too. Like I said, at least 48, the whole number of 48. I'm sorry. Yes, 48. And then below that, there are some ticks on the daily chart at 47.5, 47.60. That may hold up as temporary support. But either way, I think on a $50 stock, to be able to eke a point out would be a wonderful play. And there's one more that I don't normally watch every day, but I happen to notice that they are releasing earnings tomorrow before the open, and that's ALXN. And as I was looking at the chart, I was noticing a couple of interesting things that I want to go over, which whether this beats on earnings or it misses, this is going to be a gapper either way. And ALXN can really move. So on ALXN, releases earnings before market open. Upon review of historical performance on earnings days, EPS is earnings per share. That's my abbreviation I use for earnings instead of writing out the word every time. Historical performance on the earnings days, there's a tendency to put in large range days. At the open of these particular earnings days, the majority of these days would push quickly at the bell in the opposite direction of the gap, and then make a move in the direction of the gap for the entire day. So if this gap's down, what the majority of the days did is a quick push in the morning, and then it sold all day, and vice versa if it gapped down. I'm sorry, if it gapped up. We will ultimately have to see the size and direction of the gap to get a better idea of what our plan will be, and not just the size and direction of the gap, but also what the actual earnings release states, whether it's a miss or a beat, and what happens with the revenue, and most importantly, guidance, how they're guiding going forward, and that usually is the catalyst when it comes to earnings is forward guidance. If it's shitty, then we're probably gonna have a nice sell-off, and if it's good, there should be a push, but you can't put any conviction or any certainty in any of these plays until we see what happens tomorrow, and we have to, as always, play the chart and react to price action and volume and see what it's telling us and make our moves appropriately. So what I was seeing when I was analyzing the chart on ALXN, Let me pull it in a little bit. On all the earnings days, this here was an earnings play. That's what this E is. It's earnings. You see the huge volume. This day ended up being from highs to lows, about a 16-point day, and as you can see, it pushed in the morning and then sold all day. This earnings day here, the volume wasn't as high. This was actually an interesting one because this day here, it was a huge range day, but the actual sell-off came the following day. The earnings was released here on this day here. But either way, it pushed in the morning, sold, and then got bought back, and then for some reason the following day, I don't know, this is back in July. The really big day was put in the following day. This earnings day here, as you can see, it was a green day, but again, gap, push, and then dip, and then push all day. This big day here must have been news. Maybe it was a drug approval. I'm not sure. Well, it wasn't earnings, but it did the same thing again. Quick push in the morning, sold all day. This was an earnings day here, another huge range day. Opened here, it pushed. This one pushed a little bit more than most. This one has a shorter wick. This has a longer wick, but it still pushed, and then sold for the day. And then we have this one here. Another, it wasn't not quite as big day, but still a day where from lows to highs you got about 7 points on the table here. Perfect test of the prior day lows. Pushed right into it and sold. So as you can see, it does have a tendency on these days to put in A, big days, and B, a push and a sell or a dip and a ramp. So not that that is what is going to happen because I don't have a crystal ball, but it's just good to kind of know the historical performance of the stock and kind of know what it likes to do and what it doesn't like to do on earnings days and on gaps. And it's part of learning a personality of a stock. And it's impossible to learn the personality of every stock in the market, but a quick review of historical behavior, especially on earnings days or on news days, you kind of get an idea what the stock likes to do and what the stock doesn't like to do. And it gives you an idea of what you may want to try to plan for when writing up your morning plan, when we see where the market opens, what the gap is, what the earnings are, etc., etc., etc. And that's the beauty of using a small basket like this, is that seeing the same 5 stocks every single day, you get to learn about the stock, how it moves, what it likes, what it doesn't like, and just the little nuances about the chart. And once you see A, B, and C happening, there's a higher probability that D is going to happen, and that's something that's good to have in your toolbox. It gives you an edge. It's another piece to add to your plan when formulating your trade plan. So with that being said, that's all I have for you here. Tomorrow morning, like I said, I will be going over the gappers as I always do every morning, seeing what's going on, and I will be whittling this down to my top 3 or 4 and posting that in the room. So on that note, you guys have a great night, and I'll see you all in chat, and that's all I have for you. Have a great night, guys. Safe trading. Ciao.